Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of this radical feminist book. And I have made my own pumpkin spice latte. Yeah. With extracts, not with anything artificial. So that's a bonus. With some milk from some grass-fed cows. Alright. Now, she was going on about workplace harassment, okay, and was talking about how some people suffer in that. And here we're gonna get into female hospitality workers, okay? So let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The young female hospitality workers were not explicitly told that they would be expected to serve more than food. Between the crass propositions and clumsily fondling, one detail stands out: the frequency with which marriage reports that guests held and stroked the girl's hands, confusing intimacy and predatory sexuality with the expectation of care that should come with power, is a grim thing to have to sit through for a night's wage. So this appears to be the President's Club. There was like a social thing going on, and she didn't like how they were treated. So I'm gonna skip ahead because this is something that we know just concerning like sexuality and whatnot in the workplace. So let's go down to one here that looks like domestic abuse, because I like to get into the nitty gritty, not just kind of too far off, because she kind of goes off on tangents. And let's continue. More than 2/3 of survivors of domestic abuse have reported their partners withheld money as a method of controlling and mistreating them, according to a recent report by the charity group Women's Aid. Okay, so this is a term that I saw people fight with, which is called financial abuse. Now, it is true that if someone is abusing you and you don't have your own money, getting out will be quite hard. Without revealing too much, my very first relationship when I was 16, and I moved in with him, we were together for quite some time. Met him when I was 14, and he was, I think, a couple years older than me, and I was really naive, and he started drinking a lot, and he would behave in ways that were not suitable. I did not have any money, and it was very difficult for me to try to find a way to go. And eventually, I was able to get a job and move out. So if you are in a situation where you don't have access to any type of money, and he has the car, you're going to struggle. But now I hope that there can be some more programs for women, and that's a bonus about the digital economy, is women can make money from home. If they just have a Wi-Fi connection and a smartphone and a laptop, you can do quite a lot. So you have to be careful. But if you have someone you trust, and you guys have just a normal, happy relationship, then that's quite different. Quite different. Women told us that they fear of the financial implications of leaving made them stay with their abusive partner for much longer than they would have done if they had had financial independence, researchers said. Yeah, this is true. That's true. Women, if they have the money to go, they'll go. And this is something that I've thought about a lot. You always have to be responsible with how you tell women to stay in marriages and relationships. And here we see that you need to be careful with what you're pushing. But at the same time, financial independence means you're no longer in your gender role, and now you gotta go out and sweat like a man, have a work husband, and there's something natural, I think, in a lot of women who they want to be cared for, like a princess, like a queen. They want to have the man provide. They want to be a homebody, and they don't want to have to go out and work a crappy 9 to 5 at a CVS or some grocery store just to have this sort of calmness, when in reality you can be a stay-home mom, stay-home wife, a kept woman, and relax in your feminine energy and make your nest beautiful and decide how you want to spend the hours of your life. You can spend them studying, reading, things along that line, or you can spend them, hi, what would you like today? Would you like fries with that? Would you like to have a bag for 10 cents? Would you like to upgrade? Like, just repeating the same thing over and over and over. So soul rot is going to comfort people in a different way. So, there's that. Nearly half the women interviewed said they did not have enough money to pay for basic essentials such as food and bills while they were with their abusive partner, and more than 2 in 5 women were in debt as a result of the economic abuse, while a third had to give up their home as a result of either experiencing economic abuse or leaving their abusive partner. So when I read something like this, I think to myself, okay, there's more than one path, but the top ones is that you get your own education, but to get your own education, you have to go into debt. That's college. You have to put off your primary fertility years. When no one can automatically screen for abuse potential, but if you're picking bad boys, if you're picking men who they have anger problems, and they show you that from the get-go, they use drugs, they like to party, you met them at a yachting party, you need to be very careful and cautious. But I'm very well aware that there are different kinds of abuses, okay? And just unhealthy, miserable behavior. And so, instead of telling women, hey, you gotta never be a homebody and you need to go work for the man and be working in a sweatshop or something that you hate, just so that you never risk being broke, I would argue that you just really have a better vetting process for who you share your body with and who you decide to go into a marital contract with, and you involve your family. To me, that's the solution, is to get your parents involved, to repair families, to have respectability brought back into the courting process. I've also argued that AI be used to where what happens is there's some type of AI program that really gets to see who you are, and then they match you with someone else in the database. Something along those lines. Like, if they can create algorithms for Pinterest that are pretty accurate, and addictive algorithms in TikTok, and they use AI to make video games really fun and whatnot, well, why can't they use it for sort of matchmaking? Could be something they could do. So, and also, certain personality traits are more abusive. And you'll see women make excuses for their abusers, or they go back to their abusers. And, for example, there was that NFL football player. He beat his woman really bad, and it was recorded, and he did it in front of their toddler. And then she was like, said, oh, he just needs therapy, and I wish the best for him, and like, she's trying to get back with him, and you're like, you're crazy, woman, you know? So a lot of women, they still stay with guys who smack them up. So there's something there, Stockholm Syndrome, I think that's called. And then there's women who throw away a relationship for a fling. It's just really bizarre. There's so much that could be said. But money comes and goes. And you gotta make a choice. Do you want to be burnt out coming home and then you're like, got no energy for your children, no energy for your husband, no energy for yourself? You aren't able to really get wisdom because you're at work all day focused on your job, and, you know, that job is going to replace you when you die within a week. So you have to think about what's your purpose. What's your purpose? It's a tough decision, but just vet who you want to be with as best you can. You know? The political economy of heterosexuality is structured around keeping women dependent on men. Okay. Now, if you recall, if women, okay, so if you don't depend on a man financially, you still depend on the men purchasing your product. And if you're selling your sexuality, such as these OF women, strippers, well, eventually you're going to age out of that market. You're going to become a weird fetish, get a lot of weird customers. You're going to have stalkers and women who want to hurt you because you tempted their man. You're going to have problems. So even if you're an independent woman slinging your infected oyster across the ocean streams, you're still going to have a problem, okay? And even if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, sometimes there's a trans who takes on the feminine role and then is kept it becomes a kept partner. So they don't want to go out and work, they want to be pampered. It's a natural thing that the more feminine one would like to be pampered. It's just part of, I think, a deep innate sensibility of the human consciousness. I used to get mad at some women for not wanting to work because I was raised with work ethic. But when you start to age, you're like, I think I'm just going to pass the torch on to my husband. And let me give you an example. So she says, the political economy of heterosexuality is structured around keeping women dependent on men. I want you to take a step back and think about this example I'm going to give you. When I had my first baby and I had to go back to work after a year, that was not fun, and I missed my baby and I wanted to be home and I didn't want to do it. With my second child, I get to stay home and I'm much more happier, but I have to depend on my husband. Something to think about. So you can be independent and then missing your children, having to deal with customers and the men at work and the catty women at work, or you can be home in your zone making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and then prepping your pot roast for the dinner time. You see what I'm saying? You gotta see it as a mercy to depend on a man too, that a man is willing to take care of you and tend you, because our bodies will fail. And you're gonna depend on a male nurse, male doctors. You're always depending on a man in some way. Why is it bad to have a man who cares about you want to take care of you as much as possible? My grandma never had to have a job. She never had to have a job. She was always married and being taken care of. That's something interesting. So, you can be like my mom, on welfare, with 5 cats, I'm not joking, and out of shape, single mom. You can be like that. She says she doesn't need a man, but she's on welfare. She's always bothering everyone for money because she's broke. So, think it. My grandma, she didn't have to beg anyone for money. My grandpa just worked and provided. So, she lived in a house. My mom lives in an apartment. You see what I'm trying to say? Mom is more stubborn. She hates men because she was a sex worker, and she's burnt out. You gotta ask yourself, what's the path? What path do you want? One major reason for the pay gap between the genders is not simply that women are paid less for doing the same jobs. Rather, it's because it's still almost impossible to combine primary parenthood with full-time work. Duh. You only have so many hours in a day. You only have so many hours. Even if you are among the fortunate minority who can afford to employ actual staff, usually other poor women. Okay, yeah, I get what you. Oh, so you have money as a woman, but you have to pay poor women to do the cleaning. Oh, poor them. They want a job. Hello, I almost took a job before I decided to have a family with my husband, and where I was gonna be living with an elderly couple as a live-in housemaid private cook. My living quarters were gonna be quite crammed, and that was part of the reason why I said no. If the room would have been a little bit bigger, it would have been fine, but I wasn't able to fit a desk in there. It was very petite. Very petite. And I would have felt claustrophobic, having to be in such a small, confined environment. But I was at that age 21? So, yeah, I didn't have a lot of money, but that's fine. So if a wealthy old lady and her husband wanted to employ me, that's okay. You see what I'm saying? When you go to the nail salon, you have excess income to spend so that lady, the Vietnamese or the Chinese ladies who own those in our area, or they're Korean, they want to make money, they want the job. When someone is an immigrant from another country and they're still learning English, they can find a job. Landscapers, right? Those are men who aren't super rich. So if you go to past a Home Depot, a paint shop, you'll see a lot of Latinos standing with their thumb like this. They want work. They usually only speak Spanish. They're usually, people who have to work under the table. They're poor, but they want to work. Okay? So if you need some leaves hauled, something done that's just really quick, you go and get yourself them. You just pull up, oh, how much per hour? 25 per hour. Okay, get in. And then they do the job. You give them, sometimes, if you please be kind, give them some water, coffee, or even if you got some sandwiches, and then you drop them off back there, and then they're still doing their job. So they're poor, but that's okay. Men who are poor will do tons of jobs. So shoveling snow, hauling junk removal. So women clean houses, and they are private cooks, and a lot of nannies here are Latinas, and they're all tending to the upper class women's children, some of them very young. If those women didn't have the opportunity to be a nanny, they wouldn't have money for their own families, and some of those nannies are paid quite well. So she shouldn't say it like poor women. Yeah, they may be not as rich, but that's a pretty safe, good job. And the cases of abuse are quite lower with the immigrant women. If you get a domestic citizen who is on the cheap side, they're going to abuse those kids, and that's probably why the nanny camps were invented. Too many people. A 16-year-old is also a huge risk because the husbands like to sleep and cheat on their wives with the youths, and the adult entertainment industry has made lots of content about the hot young babysitter. So women choose older immigrant Latinas because they're safer, both for the woman's marriage and that those cultures still treat children in a way that's more traditional than in the American way, where the person's on their cell phone and then they're just the child is just existing. If I was wealthy, I really would love to hire an old school Asian lady, because those kinds, they know how to cook. But the second choice, or just the same equal choice, would be Latina, because I can see their culture. Anyone with eyes can. I wouldn't hire an American citizen who isn't. It wouldn't work, Although she was an old school jolly grandma who knew how to knit, yeah, that'd be pretty cool, I thought about being a nanny once, but my children are too tiny tots. But I would be a private tutor. How in ancient Rome they used to hire philosophers and just intellectuals to tutor their children privately? I was thinking of something like that. Having a little school where the children can come and color and you talk about existence and life, spirituality, life skills. Nothing really around math because I'm not a math teacher, but gardening, like a club, for the children, and the women who could afford to pay me would obviously have more money than me. So I don't really like the tone she's setting here. The ideal for those who can achieve it is work-life balance, which in practice turns out to mean a precarious tightrope walk between different kinds of work. And for women who don't keep their feet, there's no safety net. Okay, so work-life balance? Yeah, I mentioned that. If you recall, I did a video just with a hamster in the wheel with his head stuck in the wheel. Check it out. Just go down on video uploads. A guy was working 100 hours and he died due to heart problems. 100 hours a week. So when she's sitting here whining about women who work a lot, there's a lot of men who do work a lot, and we should not pretend otherwise. So for everyone, regardless of their gender, there should be a work-life balance. But some people, they want to chase their dreams and become the best, and then they outsource their parenting duties. If you think about the aristocratic class in England, a lot of them would hire nannies, to work in their mansions. And then the nanny got to live in a mansion. And that's just how it's always been. So you get to choose, you get to choose. Of course, women are still saddled with the minor chore of continuing the species. Excuse me? You stupid. Oh my, I think that's like one of the... Okay. What a witch. What a witch. Women are saddled with the minor chore of continuing the species. Okay, I want you to... This is how you gotta... This is why it's so important to break down these women's books. She's attacked Christianity. She's attacked white people. She's attacked white men. She's attacked people who are not into sodomy, aka homosexuals. Heterosexuals. And she says she wants to break up the nuclear family, and now she insults and degrades motherhood by describing it as being saddled. So when you saddle a horse, you are strapping it in. It can't really escape that and allows the horse to be ridden. Although if you're a tribesman, they could totally ride a horse bareback and grab the mane. But a saddle is it's a more formulaic, straddled-in type of concept. So when we mothers lovingly carry our little babies on us, they're saddled to you. They're nice and snug and safe. This precious little tender newborn. When you go hiking and you have one of those really cool camper backpacks, they're saddled in. So for her to describe it with this sort of livestock terminology is just sick. She doesn't have any motherly energy in her. She claims to be a champion of women. She tells women to walk and talk and act like they want to get F. She puts out by the third date. Now this author is describing motherhood as being saddled. And she calls minor chores. Anyone who calls pregnancy something as a chore, like, oh, it's so horrible, she's anti-human. Okay? She's anti-human. You cannot call pregnancy a chore and something minor. A chore denotes that you're not grateful. You need to be grateful for fertility. Okay? These same witches will say, oh, we need to have surrogacy. We need to have IVF. We need to have abortion. So they're all over the place with their ideology. Continuing the species. So when someone talks like this, like the species, and she's saying it in a negative way, what she's saying is she doesn't think there's anything beautiful about, like, example of a home birth video. If you see some of these first-time moms and they have a peaceful home birth video, they're crying, and it's like they have to birth the placenta, and there's a midwife there helping her, and she's just like, there's women who, like me, we go through C-sections to have our children. We nurse our babies. That's not minor, okay? And it's not a chore. It's a sacred duty. Fertility is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? Now this witch should get sterilized, and she will never have to plague a man as having, like, with her being his wife. Because she would not be a fit mother. If you hate pregnancy and children and innocent souls this much, that you would use dehumanizing language, well, guess what, honey? There's sterilizations at the community clinic. Go ahead and go over there and rid the world of your genes. Because every woman has a choice right now with their fertility. You don't want to have babies? You want to revoke that gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Go get sterilized. Get on long-term birth control, use rubbers, pull out, and sleep with better men. She don't want to do that. But now they are expected to get on with that risky, dangerous, exhausting work in whatever free time they can scrounge in between shifts in the wage economy where women and girls are concentrated into the lowest paying, least secure jobs. Okay, hold up. So she doesn't want people to... I'm going to put a contradiction here. Contradiction. Because she doesn't want women to depend on men. Then she's saying, oh, poor women, how can they be parents? They have to scrounge for free time between their horrible, low-paying, low-secure jobs in order to take care of the children. So you can be home with your wonderful children, spend all the free time you want with them, and have a good husband who likes you, and enjoy your pregnancy. So what do you want women to do? She wants women to essentially have this sort of communistic state where the government just lavishes money on them so that they can have their cake and eat it too. That just doesn't exist. Either you're going to work and have no kids and work until you die, or you'll have your children at home with you, right, and enjoy the days you have on earth with them and trust your husband to stick around. And if he doesn't, then you work. And you hope with the rectification when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Judgment Day. Because Allah is swift in accounting. No job is secure. Men have rough, dirty jobs. That's why I'm doing the value series. I talked about the value of plumbers. Does this feminist want to go and clean out a urinal or go to a construction site and put in the plumbing? Does she want to go and fix shower heads and snake drains? Does she want to do commercial grade or residential plumbing and how difficult that is? The amount of feces and urine and germs these men have to deal with? Okay then. That's a waged economy. Men, if you've been paying attention, El Campesino, I've been posting on the community tabs, males in the agricultural sector, picking up cabbage and strawberries, working under the sun. Okay? That's a hard, low-paying job. It has to be done. Yes, there's women who do that in other countries, but that's not the point I'm getting at. Those men have families. That job isn't secure. Okay? Men who work in slaughterhouses, they have a filthy job. Men who go for king crabs in the storms of the ocean, getting that cold, frigid water poured on them, and they can risk going overboard. Women like her, they're poison to the female soul because she calls having children a chore, something to be saddled with, and sees women having childbirth, which is this beautiful spiritual moment, as just continuing the species. She uses cattle language, livestock language with women by trying to contend she's a proponent of female empowerment. In reality, she resents her fertility. She resents how she's been ran through. She's jaded, and she's been in an ivory tower for too long, and she's deeply sexually perverted, and is probably very off-putting for the men she meets, and then she wonders why she's getting pumped and dumped. So instead of fixing herself, she's giving contradictory prescriptions for solutions to problems she made. So I think this is a very demented human being. But these are the types of women who are talking to Muslimas and who become even ex-Muslims, and then they go causing fitnas in the world. So she's basically, almost sounds like her solution here is just don't have children. She's kind of saying here, don't depend on a man, so stay at work and don't have children, because you'll either have to have a nanny or you will never get enough time with them. So she just has this very pessimistic, unhelpful view. I wonder what her mom did to her. Parenthood is not provided for within the schematic of the modern workplace. Okay, these people, I get it. It's hard in the modern era. But in the past, was there? Do females have a sort of sisterhood? It doesn't exist. A wealthy man can go to work and all the secretaries are lusting for him and want to be the side chick. You know, you gotta be careful here. There's no real sisterhood. So to sort of expect this female empowered workplace to exist doesn't exist. I've never had a good female boss. Female bosses are just as cunty as you would expect. Maybe you guys have. I never have. Some of the worst bosses I ever had were women. In the United States, paid maternity leave is a rarity. Okay, so where is this money coming from? The maternity leave is more taxes. Yes, you want more maternity leave, but you can just leave work. Your child needs you. Sacrifice your stupid careerism and your title worship and be a parent, a real parent. These people will work hours and hours for their jobs in order to get a little bit more money, but won't sacrifice a job in order to raise their children who will actually love them and care about them and take care of them in their old age when the corporation will just move on without them. It's so strange. We do need more maternity leave, but at the same time, try to pick a husband who can provide. And in almost every developed economy, women are now expected to juggle the demands of work and childcare. Who did that though? Liberals. Liberals literally tell you, go to work, women. You're lazy, you have no ambition if you don't go get a job. They tell you to... How many of these childless 33-year-olds and whatnot are crying all over TikTok? I saw a reel the other day where a nurse, she's like, girl math is working something years and wanting to be a stay-home mom. A lot of women are venting on these ironically liberal platforms that feminism lied to them. And the feminists will say, it was always about a choice. But here you can see how these feminists brainwash women. Don't depend on a man. You'll never really achieve work-life balance. Kids are a chore. Pregnancy is settlement. You know, it's not worth it to continue the human species. You're gonna have a difficult time juggling demands of work and childcare. So it's just anti-family, anti-children, anti-men, anti-straight men. And then they wonder why people loathe them at the crucial mid-career stage. Crucial mid-career stage. So what is this? Careerism. She cares more about her career than her child's needs. This is why feminists, they make terrible mothers. Because they say, you know, you little child, you're an inconvenience. And mommy doesn't want to nurture you, love you. I don't care about memories with you. I care about money and title and competing with men and being a ball crusher. So you know what? I need to focus on my career, not your childhood memories. So see you later. And then those women are going to age. Their kids are going to be like, you know what? Have fun at the old folks home where there's all these abusive nurses. Sayonara. Oh, why is life so hard? Because your duty as a mom is to make a good life for your children. But instead of making a good life for your children, you just focused on your career. You stupid whore. When men in their 20s and 30s are building their reputations, women who have children are suddenly focused on hanging on to what they have. Don't resent what you've been given, okay? Don't resent. So, building their reputations. Women who have children, so you can build your reputation through being a good mom. You can build your reputation in multiple ways. See, she worships this career. Her brain is inverted. Instead of seeing herself as a proud homemaker who guided souls through this cosmic realm, she wants to be like, company loyalty. Did you make money for that company? Did you get that promotion? Did your boss pat you on the head? And did you increase your 401k? On your deathbed, will you think about your career? Will you think about your children? By Allah, I would think about my children. Who gives a damn about any career or job? Who cares? I would think about my little ones. And then say, La ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. If she got cancer, I wonder if she would be thinking about her mid-career stage. When someone has cancer, it's no longer about, I need to get more career status, I need to be important, I need validation through career success. It's, where are my children? How much time do I have? And all of a sudden their perspective is back onto normal. Don't worship money. This woman worships money. This is presented glibly as a choice. Women choose to have babies, knowing that the market doesn't reward them for it. The market doesn't have to reward you for having children. Children are a reward in and of themselves. She's expecting a job to be like a daddy, a husband, a loving entity. It's a soulless place where you go to earn fiat currency. Right? So, you do choose to have children. Now, if Vladimir Putin, I believe, like, if you had a certain amount of children, you'd get a medal for something. I forgot what it was, but they were rewarding people for having children. Okay, so liberals in America and Canada and stuff, they're anti-natalists. They basically think humans are bugs. We need to reduce the population because of climate alarmism. So they're not going to reward women for having children when they want to cut the population. Right? They rather penalize you. And China, which is a godless state, had the one-child policy where they've had forced abortion. So a lot of children were aborted. So they wanted to cut the population. So when you don't value children, that's when it becomes precarious. But she just minimized the importance of children by calling them, a chore and her being saddled. It's a very nasty way to look at children. And there's this little child who I follow on Twitter/X. This little sweet baby Gus. He's had a heart transplant. And he's been in the hospital for 177 days, and they're really struggling to get him to come around. May Allah have mercy on his soul and guide him to Islam when he grows up. And that's when you see the how important health is, and how much a mother loves her child when the child is ill, and how you would do anything for the child to be healthy. Yet when some women have healthy children, they use language like this witch does. Oh, saddled, it's a chore. They're not grateful that their body was able to form a fully functioning human being who will eventually grow up and talk to them. They don't see the mystery, the miraculousness. And men, I really wish they would stop reproducing with these ladies, because they create trauma and pain. And then they turn around and poison the well. This is the kind of women... She's the kind of woman who is that witch in the woods in all the fairy tales, like Hansel and Gretel. Like, she's the type of crazy woman, cat lady in the woods, who the villagers should have put a torch to her hut, because she's just a threat. because she hates heterosexual men, so she hates what Allah loves, and she hates the nuclear family. She thinks careerism is more important than spending time with the little children that you have. She's severely lost. A severely lost soul. Historically, times of economic crisis have usually triggered popular obsession with traditional gender roles and panic about a crisis of masculinity. Okay, so economic crises triggering, she says, popular obsession with traditional gender roles. So, there's nothing wrong with women saying, you know what, let my husband go out and grind out in the world, and I'll make the home a place of peace and relaxation. It's so bizarre how this woman has really adopted hyper masculine traits while hating masculinity even of itself. She is behaving like a man in her sexuality, and she has a very unfeminine, unnurturing way of looking at pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. The way she talks about motherhood is rare for men to talk about. It's quite strange. And panic about a crisis of masculinity. It happened in the 1980s under Reagan and Thatcher. It happened in the 1930s in Europe and America. It happened in the mid-1800s as revolutions rolled and tumbled across the global north. It's happening now, as anxieties about class are transposed into the key of sex and race. Women are more often ready to take the shitty, poorly paid service jobs to perform the emotional labor first identified by early Russell Hochschild in her essential treatise on the managed heart. Okay, so a crappy job that's poorly paid is still a job. And men have had literal shit jobs for a long time. This is really motivating me to do even more research and bust out those other videos, because I think women like her are ungrateful, because we need to educate girls on what men do and how they suffer in the jobs. So she has no compassion for heterosexual men. She hates them. But I think her hatred just comes from how beautiful Barbie-esque women are able to be catered for and enjoy it, and she saw some horrors of women not being treated right, and now she's on a crusade to destroy marriage and destroy men, which will always hurt heterosexual women. And it's almost like she wants to make women all lesbians, bisexuals, but then thinks that someone isn't going to have to take care of the children. It's really quite bizarre. Her prescriptions and solutions are off the charts. But men do a lot of poorly paid jobs, so do children. I'm not sure if she's trying to come for the workers' rights angle, but is she having a sort of communistic angle here? I wonder. Let us see. Women, particularly young women, are not surprised when they are offered the chance to be chewed down, snorted up, and horked over the balcony of a rich people's party at the end of the world, because they were never supposed to want anything else. Particularly poor women. Particularly women of color. So here, this is something you have to notice with her. Particular. So she starts here and then goes like, breaks it down, and then it's a cornucopia of victimhood things that you can take, and then wears little badges, how much of a victim you are. But I would also argue her constant victimization of poor non-white women and ignoring the wonderful women, regardless of their economic status, is alarming. Because if you look at how many women who are poor, but they're wise, they're loved by their family, cherished by their communities, they feel fulfilled, she wouldn't talk about them this way. It's almost like she wants her own ethnicity to be perpetually resentful and focusing on what they don't have instead of what they do have. Not very healthy, if you ask me. Men, by contrast, were raised to expect dignity and decency in work, respect and security outside of it, and when none of that is forthcoming, it is far easier to turn around and blame women. So, respect is earned, I'd argue. It's not given. You get a basic baseline, but then if you behave in a certain manner, you're going to lose respect. If you don't respect yourself, you can't expect others to do it for you. Now, the expectation of dignity, act in a way that is dignified, and then you can expect dignity. But if you're twerking on a cop car, you are in a strip club, getting champagne poured on you, and stuff like being undignified, I don't think you can expect much. Decorum, class, decency, modesty, bashfulness, integrity, those are things that merit someone to give you a dignified response. To treat you decently. She's not treating non-whites with dignity and decency. She's not treating men with dignity and decency throughout her book. But she wants it for herself. It's quite alarming. Well. Talk about a headache. Women, however, have been cheated just as much as men. They may now be legally permitted to perform the same low-waged, insecure jobs that men do, but that doesn't mean they are required to feel grateful for them. I think if you get a job when you needed it and you were able to get something, that's better than nothing, and you should say Alhamdulillah. Yes, you can hate your job, but are you able to get Tylenol, some bottled water, shampoo products, something like that? You should be grateful, because death comes at any time. So gratitude is something that can help keep you going. Women too are struggling to keep the lights on, to care for themselves and their families. And when a woman demands a fraction of the love, care, and attention, even whisper at the pleasure that she's supposed to owe to men, the response ranges from confusion to outright violence. Now, okay, I would like to see her talk about India. I want to see her go to non-white countries and speak about it there. She's attacking white men all throughout her book, but bad men come in all colors. Okay? Because evil has many faces. She has to remember that, and I feel like she's forgotten that. Maybe she also secretly envies the really beautiful bombshell blonde trophy wife who gets to have brunch on the weekends, and her wealthy husband lavishes her with luxuries and she doesn't have to work. And her adorable little children are well taken care of, and they get to go to chess and soccer practice and swimming and violin lessons and stuff like that. They have a cute puppy and a nice house cat and a lush garden with geometric stiles. Maybe she just resents that. Because the way she frames relationships is always one of negativity. She's not seeing it from the man's side of, hey, your wife may lose her body, she may stop taking care of herself, how it feels for a man to be married to a cold ice queen. how it feels for a man not to get a good cooked meal from his wife, how it feels for her to demand more of him than he can actually do. She doesn't care about how the women can be absolute trials for their husbands, but just is consistently and systematically evoking a deep resentment towards men. And sometimes, yes, we all have to hold up the black mirror to our face and peer within ourselves and come to terms with what we failed at and how we can do better and how maybe we're being a bit of a cunt. You know, we have to do that sometimes. Middle ground. She doesn't seem to want reconciliation between the genders, but she seems to say like, oh, you shouldn't owe men anything. You think about that. So that she's supposed to owe men. She thinks a man owes you everything, but a woman owes a man nothing. Who can have a relationship like that? She's a careerist, so when you go to work, employee and boss and customer, there's this, you have duties and responsibilities. You decided to take on the job. You must fulfill your oaths. You must fulfill your obligations. That's why you were given the job. Relationships, you need to put work into them, yes, to maintain them for the benefit of your children, but she has pointed out in her past section she doesn't care about the nuclear family. She sees them as a system of oppression. She does not value homemakers. She doesn't value stay-at-home moms. She only values a careerist. And if you were a woman who can then afford to have work-life balance and pay nannies, you're still not good enough for her. Because she's saying that, oh, there's no safety net underneath you. In America, there's pretty decent safety nets. Just stay sober. Don't prostitute yourself. Stay away from crime. Budget. And if you can move somewhere where there is a chance to grow your own food, fish, you can do that. There's ways of getting along, is my point. I really hope I really hope so far with breaking down her book, sentence by sentence, and giving my opinions that maybe I have formed more solutions for people and kind of cured people of this form of nihilism, inshallah. But the fact that she wrote this book, and I found this in a pretty liberal area bookshop, goes to show that obviously she felt her book was needed and that it was going to reach the right audience. And in so many bookshops, you won't see things about Islam or homemaking. So, this is why it's important for women, especially Muslims, to talk about positive things about Islam, their relationships, how they view the world, because if you don't, there's a vacuum and it's getting filled by women like this, who could turn your own daughters against you. And how many women will learn the hard way that this chick, she's got some bolts loose. I know it'd be really funny if she got married and like changed like all her stances, you know. It can happen. It can happen. But let me know what you think, fam, because she touches on like, oh, they don't get to build a reputation because they're taking care of kids. But there's what reputation in your mere career stage, that's not the end all be all. If you remember, I shared this before. Her name was Annie. She was this old lady who was a widow. She had an apple orchard. She did dog showing. She, in her living room, had so many ribbons on the wall. So many trophies in her trophy case. She was excellent at what she did. She helped give my grandma the start by giving her studs to breed in the dogs. Dog showing lineage, where you have to have pedigrees and stuff like that. And when I was a kid, she was on her deathbed. She had a hospital bed in her living room. She died in her living room with all her stuff on the wall. She achieved a great many things. And I like to think to myself, like, I want to have as much as her of those accomplishments. But I wonder what she was thinking of in those final moments. Because I had visited her in her home, and people were like, she's not gonna make it much longer. I still picture the scene. And when we got home, they said she had passed. But in those moments where your body is struggling to hold on, will you think about the career? There's nothing wrong with having grand ideas. I want to be a great scholar. I don't know if I'll ever get there. But remember, there was this guy from the Reptarium, Brian Bazarczyk. I don't know how to pronounce Polish letters. He started very small, and he slowly built up, and he had this grand thing for the aquarium that he was building, and he died of cancer before it was accomplished. But his family will inshallah, get to enjoy all what he helped to build. He focused on his career, and he perished. If you think about how Prince Charles, he waited forever for the throne, now has cancer. When you think about Queen Elizabeth, she focused on her state as ruling, and she lived a long time. When you look at how Kate Middleton, Prince William's wife, she's working hard doing stuff for England and the United Kingdom, whatever. She got cancer too. So just remember, it's important to focus on building and trying to create good things for humanity, or a path in your niche market. But you're not guaranteed it. But you will be judged for how you treated your children. And your children will remember you, and you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking, I was a shitty parent. Every parent's going to make mistakes. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Okay? But the difference is, how many good things will your children have to say at your eulogy? Oh, she was at work all the time. She loved her job. Think about the show Succession. Roy, he had 3 children, right? Look how he treated all of them as he pursued his career. Just think about that. That show hit a nerve with some people. As you're chasing your dreams, children will be neglected. Think about conquerors in the past. They were busy out conquering, not too much time for anything else. Really examine, what is your purpose? What do you want to perform in this world? There's 0 things wrong with saying, you know what? I don't need to be a LinkedIn feminist boss babe. I'm gonna take care of my children and explore this beautiful earth and absorb my surroundings and look at nature and practice new recipes and enjoy the simple Shire life. I don't need the downtown Manhattan, pointed hills ego. I don't need Meryl Streep, Devil Wears Prada. But rather can have a life of minimalism, introspection, and homemaking. You have to choose, and it's important for women to see the pros and cons of the path they choose, and to know that they can always change that path. If you are in a careerist thing and you're like, I'm in so much debt to college, I'm not getting much fulfillment, and you are still in fertility time period, there could be a guy out there for you. Just be careful is all I'm saying. Be careful. Let me know what you think. I really want to see if you guys disagree, agree, just word it respectfully. Don't go crazy with insults, because insults don't really get too far, But I hope you learned something. I know I did. And what's great about going through this line by line is that a feminist can't accuse me of not actually studying feminism, because a lot of people will have cliche talking points but not go through the actual texts and philosophies of the feminists. And I, inshallah, hope to continue to explore this and see what was it that caused it. And extreme red pillars, MGTOW guys, they're responding to this philosophy, and this is leaving a lot of women without being able to attract a good mate. So there's so much we can do in the world. Let's try to do what we can to make it a more functional place with less suffering. And so keep on keeping on. You know what I mean? If you'd like to support my work and read the other things that I write, you can do so by going to my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. And if you liked it, like the video. If you want to share it, but watch out for the feminist rampage. They are quite screeching. And I'm not monetized. I never applied for monetization, and I probably would lose it anyways. So if you join the blog, it supports the channel and you get exclusive content, which is good. Take care, fam.